Hi there, my name's Chris Francis and I'm going to share some insights into my experiences of teaching art and design and photography. And I trained as an illustrator. I studied at Falmouth School of Art and I worked freelance for 6 years and did quite a lot of travelling working as an illustrator as well. And so came into teaching a little bit later. And I put this sign here, this note here was something we put up a while ago at open evening, and we were putting a load of signs up. And it kind of made me think about the different roles that you take on when you step into teaching. And I started as an illustrator and a designer, and the truth is I didn't really know much about fine art. But it's, I guess what's been a real treat for me is over time how much I've, probably sounds a bit cheesy, but how much I've fallen in love with the subject and the belief in the potential of art, the value of an art education, and significantly too the relationships with young people and how art has such a positive force for good working with them. So I'm very fortunate to work where I work and be in the space that I do genuinely look forward to going to every day. And I know schools have their complications and they're not without problems, but it's a really exciting time if you're thinking of becoming an art teacher. And so hopefully I can share some insights that will be of use. I guess the benefit is you can just forward it or stop it if I turn to tired muttering. So you may be familiar with our art pedagogy and photo pedagogy work. That's a collaboration with John Nichols, who's a good man. He teaches photography in Thomas Tallis School, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go through as well. So just what I'm talking about sharing, I thought I'd put this up here quickly. There's loads of great forums and places where you can go as an art teacher or a trainee art teacher to get ideas and seek support. The NSEAD is a great organisation. Their Facebook forum is pretty active. But just a kind of word of warning too here, like sometimes this is a question that came up. I don't want to seem like I know it all or am being overly critical of colleagues, but I think it's important to know if you're applying for a job, which presumably some of you will be doing soon, that these forums are seen. And if I was interviewing someone and I saw that they put up a question such as this, where they're asking for ideas for a job interview, that would trouble me. And so just a word of caution now. I think it's important that we're constructively critical of what we do and how we talk about art and art education and the potential perceptions that can leave others with as well. Okay, so we're going to try an experiment. I'm not sure how this will work over film, but hopefully you've got a piece of paper and a pen. And so let's give it a go. And so first of all, what I'd like you to do is very simply write down the word dog on your piece of paper and hold it up. Now, hopefully you're not chatting about that. You just write it down, hold it up. Okay, great. So now what I want you to do is I want you to turn your piece of paper over, and I'd like you to, 30 seconds, draw a dog. Okay? So once again, hopefully not discussing if you're in a group. If you're on your own, it's probably a bit of an odd thing to do anyway. But and then once you've done it, you're going to hold it up as well. Now, so what have we got? You might have one of these in your group. Now, I'd really encourage you to try this exercise with a class if you haven't come across it before. It's very simple, but it does reveal some truths, I think, about art and people's responses. So what's interesting, I think, if I ask you to write the word dog, then they might not ask, why do you want us to do that? Do it. And there doesn't seem to be too much fuss. But if you ask a class to draw a dog, then the atmosphere changes. It suddenly feels a bit more excitable. You might have someone saying, oh, no, I can't do that. And someone else kind of laughing or saying they can, or why haven't you asked me to do this instead? And I think that's interesting to start with, that difference between words and images and what we bring with it. So there's always someone that draws this, or something along these lines, something they've probably drawn as a kid and drawn repeatedly. I think there's something there about safety nets and doing what we're comfortable with. And then you've got I'm more of a cat person, dog. So why do you ask me to draw a dog? I'm really good at cats, or something like that. And maybe that travels over. Maybe you've just been counting and I need 2 ears and I need a nose and a tail and let's get those legs on, and it's all the bits are there, so that must be a dog kind of drawing. In a class environment, you might have someone that slows down and they might even be thinking of a dog they've got, or they might have particular skills already and they're confident just having a go at that. The illustrators within the group, they're probably having a bit more of a play. Maybe you got a dancing dog or a dog with a hat on or something. But I think there's something there about confidence and play which is encouraging. And then these are the ones, aren't they? These are the ones in a class that I don't want to even talk about it, dog. And for me, this is where it's interesting. Like people that are so kind of like drawing can cripple them in a way that they feel like they've got to stop and and then destroy it or really express it to everybody that there's something that they can't do. And I think that's it. They're the ones in a class that that's where we earn our money, I think, and they're the ones to watch and can be really rich rewards as well. What would happen if you said to a class, you gave the same kind of activity, but you said this time write the word art, hold it up, all pretty straightforward, turn your page over, draw some art, make some art. Now that's a whole can of worms, isn't it? And I probably wouldn't do it to a class because that would leave them totally lost. But maybe it makes a kind of a little point of reflection on the potential or the possibilities or the constraints of having no rules. Okay. This is a bit of text from some Nick Cave writing, and I'm a big fan of listening to music in the classroom and talking to students about music. But this text really resonated with me. I'll give you a few seconds to have a read through. And when I read that, it really rang true to me that in the art rooms even, you'll have some students that come in and with time, maybe not immediately, these new confidences grow and they become these other kind of deeper, richer kind of parts of themselves emerge. And the flip side of that is sometimes, too often in schools, there's students that absolutely might be overly kind of perfectionist with their sketchbooks or how they put their work together, and they put these immense pressures on themselves, and that really prevents them from moving forward and puts them off art. And I think that can be troubling too. So that resonated with me, that bit of text, when I saw it. There's a big question. How do we organise, assess, value, critique, celebrate, expose, enjoy, learn from art? And I think that's questions that we ask ourselves continually when we're in the classroom, as we reflect and try and work out the best ways of approaching things. And this is something that maybe putting to you now doesn't really work over film, but something that I table with a class each time is that if we're in this space and we're doing this together, I'm thinking about what I'm saying in a way that will hopefully be useful for you, but I can't read it, it's on a film. But in a class environment, you want to try and establish that understanding of the collective culture and how we're going to shape that. So how do you create a classroom where you're really excited to want to go to work there every day, and also students at the end of each lesson, they leave wanting to come back? I think that's a continual challenge, and it's an important one as well. So it can be handy to table your particular pedagogies, your certain approaches. Now, you're probably sensing already I can mumble my way around the best of things, but I think there's also something to be said. I'm not not being the expert in the room with a PowerPoint going, here's what we're going to do today, and everybody's going to do this, and we're all going to have it at the end of the lesson or in a couple of weeks. I think in art education, there's an important place for creating doubt or creating confusion, actually, and for struggle, allowing students to fall in those gaps of those PowerPoint slides, kind of just for unexpected things to happen, providing structure and scaffolding so students know their way to get back out again. But I think that it's important to table that with students. I'm just going to quickly now flick through a few examples of work. Collaborative projects with students. This was a big camera that we made in the classroom when we were putting on an exhibition. It had like a little mini kind of cinema space. And I love these big projects, like projects that you think will be impossible with students, because we haven't got massive budgets. So we're normally scraping around with bits of MDF or something. But it's really like great to be ambitious with students and work collaboratively. This one on the left is a real favourite. where we made, I had a big classroom. I've changed classrooms now, but at the front of the classroom, we built, using MDF, we built this box. So when people came in the classroom, it looked like they were stepping into a kid's bedroom. And across the walls, we had these different drawings, like timelines of drawings from the scribbling stage to kind of schematic stage to more complex drawings. So there's something about drawing development that we learned as a class doing it. And then to get into the actual classroom, you had to walk through the wardrobe. And we put on a little exhibition. I don't know who this guy is coming out of it, but someone had taken that photo. And it was just a really fun, playful experience based on this lesson of considering how we learn to draw. I'm just going to flick through a few other examples of the spaces and how we've changed them. And some student installations using film projections. And I'm really aware that these examples, especially if you're just training in a school, they can be quite impossible to take on. But it's good to know. Hopefully, it's encouraging to kind of share that you can be really ambitious with students within a school space. And if it obviously takes effort and energies, but you get the rewards you get back always seem to outweigh those for me, and give everyone a spring in their step. And you set the bar high for the children that are coming through. In younger years too. So I guess that's something about our approach. These are pods that we made not so long ago that students could then book out and create installations in. They're quite handy for storage when they're not being used. There was a film that was playing up here. Okay, all right. I'm just going to touch on this as an introduction as well to our photo pedagogy work, really, because John Nichols and I had met a couple of times and we were talking about sharing work with other teachers. And then I organised a trip. We do lots of residential trips and they're a great way to get to know students. And in 2015, I invited John to come with myself and 18 students and a couple of other colleagues to Paris. And I didn't know John particularly well. I'd only met him once or twice, but we'd been sharing ideas about photography teaching. And we were in Paris. It was November, and we arrived on a Friday night, and we were having dinner in the centre, and then the terrorist attacks began, and that was obviously quite a frightening moment. I was in charge of 18 students, and we were in a restaurant, and thankfully we were safe where we were, but we had to eventually, after waiting for a good few hours, we had to navigate our way back to the hotel. And once we got back to the hotel, we were stuck really for the weekend. And the students, as you can imagine, were pretty scared. And staff in the hotel were really upset. They weren't sure what was happening. And we set about trying to keep them busy through setting art projects. And it was a really transformative experience for all of us, from something that was obviously horrific, and we were really fortunate. But the students set about making installations in their bedroom, for example, and we toured the hotel, visiting these really powerful installations, and they used photographs. Some of them had Polaroid cameras. They hung up bed sheets. They moved out the furniture. They turned their furniture upside down because the world's upside down, one of them was saying. And they used their flashes as strobe lights. They did performances behind shower curtains. And it really impacted upon me and the whole of the group, actually. And it really kind of sewed home the notion of the power of art at a time when you think you might be helpless or you can't do anything, how positive that could be. So that I guess that's fueled John and I's work as well for the art pedagogy and photo pedagogy work, though we've never really discussed it in depth like that. So we do a lot of commissioning with students, just inviting them to contribute on ambitious levels. So this is Millie, who painted a mural just outside our art department entrance. And this is Ryan, who was doing some invitations for an exhibition, these large-scale, great illustrations with a bit of willow. So we try to challenge students to do these big projects and take risks. And so this was a particularly interesting one where we were doing a talk. I'll just share this one quickly. It was funny. I was doing a talk at the Photographers Gallery with John about some of our work, and I had my lesson in the morning and I was getting the train to London, and I had my year 13 class, and they were a good bunch, and I challenged them to make a film that I was then going to hit play on at 6 o'clock that evening with a room full of teachers, and I wouldn't be able to look at it before then, so I was trusting them to make a short film, make an installation, and and then I'll just press play in a room full of people that I was talking to, and I trusted they wouldn't let me down. And so that was funny. This is, I think I can get it here, the clip. I'll just give you an insight.
Oh, didn't we have that installation to do for Mr. Francis? Hi sir, hi everyone. We've just finished the installation. For those of you who are wondering, we've just put a display together of a variety of our images, which we've used to write a response of our thoughts surrounding the photographs.
Yeah, I just paused it for a second. Probably should have said this is late on Saturday night, and I had these good plans to do a complex film and put it all together and get some other people contributing. But as is the way with teaching, I ran out of time, so I'm here on a late on a Saturday in my garden shed because it's the only place that's quiet. And so anyway, so here's some other examples of some work with students out in exhibitions. This was in Brighton, and this was a really nice example. Gabriel was a really quiet student who did this very simple performance where we just challenged them to respond to the photographs in some way, and he created this masking tape square which was double-sided so he could slide it along the floor, and then just stood in front of these photos and echoed the poses. And we stood there as a group really mesmerised with this routine, and really made us all look at Gabe in a different way for the good, and gave him a different kind of encouragement to take risks. And I think these things happen when you start to take students out and experiment and try new ideas with them. So we try to do that a lot. Here's an example of a little video with a Year 12 activity we've done, which is based on Erwin Worm's 1 minute sculptures, which we look at the traditions of sculpture and kind of question its place as something that's permanent and crafted and solid, and look at Erwin Worm's playful 1 minute sculptures that the public interact with. And so it's just a great activity to take them out. We're playing, and you can see we're very fortunate where our school is. We can just walk down to the coast as well, and it gets everyone connecting and laughing, and at the same time is coupled with big ideas about art or what art might be as well. And so and then we went to London, and we had a bit of time, and we were with a big group. There's like 60 Year 11 students, and we just thought we'd have a go doing the same thing again with them. They cause a bit of disruption in the city. And actually what really makes me laugh with this was one of the members, I think it's this clip, there's a member of the public, there he is, and he just joins in. And we've actually afterwards I went up to him and had a chat, and he stayed in touch, which is really funny, and he's a photographer as it was. So there we are outside the Royal Academy. Mischief. Okay, it's good fun. So I'll just play another clip here. This is an example of students where we got them to do some writing, creative writing about artwork or photography, and then we put on a performance for other students and for teachers as well. So this was a really nice.
Shadows are at unease at an attempt to part the lovers, sharing oxygen, a spectre of alienation, suffocation, or even death.
Shirts giggling, stone breasts. She wishes for a more sophisticated debate, lips locked by the...
For me, this photo encapsulates the feeling of those who sat and watched, from across the world, still, silent, watching on.
But with the jarred tilt of the composition, unease returns, so back to dread we go. And someone, it seems, is home. Welcome to the Bates Motel, echoes from the...
An embrace so powerful, the shadows eavesdrop to hear our prayers. Attraction. Wondering how someone who could carry a mountain on his shoulders might crumble so conveniently.
That group doing the readings are actually my year 13s who went into lockdown and therefore missed out on their end of year, which was a real shame. We missed out on their end of year exhibition, but amazing class, and it was really nice to see them there as well. So, okay, then there's a big question. How and where do we begin to teach art and design? What do we include or exclude, and what do we accept, or what do we resist or fight against, or what do we challenge and what do we champion? And obviously there's lots of different approaches. And that's healthy, and it's good to have healthy discussions about that. And I think that's kind of what led us to devising our threshold concepts, really, for us. So if you've seen our art pedagogy and photo pedagogy threshold concepts, then they're really us trying to pin down what we consider important big ideas, or what you might call transformative knowledge, to expose within the classroom with students. And there's lots of research on threshold concepts, and if you're interested, I'd really encourage you to go and have a look. But this notion really that once you've moved through this particular portal of understanding, that your understanding has then shifted to a point where you look at things very differently, and that can be difficult, and that can be troublesome as well. There's a few different descriptors here of what a threshold concept is likely to be, touching on the transformative, the irreversible. And I'm also taken with this idea that they have their limitations, but they also reveal these new connections across knowledge and understanding. And they can be difficult sometimes. They can be troublesome for students. They might not necessarily want to accept some kind of ideas or ways of thinking differently that have go against what's been established. So, okay, I don't want to talk in riddles. This tired talking is probably not helping a little bit, but if I can jump through, let's try and make some sense of this together. So that it might be a good point now to pause the video and to discuss amongst yourselves what the essential threshold concepts of an art and design education might be. So what do you personally consider the big ideas, the really important knowledge that needs to be exposed within the classroom? So you might want to pause there and have a think about that, or make some notes. We'll come back to that too. I'm going to keep going because it's late and I need to get this done. So each of our threshold concepts for art and design, we've written 9, and they're accompanied with these illustrations, which I did in Illustrator. And each of the illustrations connects to stories and artworks in playful ways. And I certainly don't think they're the finished article. It's really nice to hear people discussing them, or criticisms of them even. And so we don't even see them as fixed. But the sentences themselves, so this is threshold concept 1 for us. Artists make marks, drawing our attention. And the sentences are meant to be quite pithy and open for discussion or debate, and to provoke intrigue, really. The same with the illustrations. There's loads on the website about that, so I'm not going to go into that in detail now. But if I just use this one as a starting point, I've taken this off the website. So it aims to set out that, so for example here, the definition of mark making is not fixed or limited to materials that you find in the art cupboard. That art or mark making doesn't have to be a precious exercise. And I think these are really important ideas to expose with students who especially might be putting themselves under pressure to get things right, or believe that accuracy or photorealism or something is the be-all and end-all. And obviously it has its merits and its strengths in learning those technical skills, and I'm really not dismissive of that. But I also think it's important to table the more expressive, experimental possibilities as well. and to worry less about creating impressive marks, pay more attention to the qualities, the subtleties of mark making. I often liken it to tuning a radio into a more sensitive frequency and discovering something much more subtle going on as well that can be interesting too. And importantly to that threshold concept, the notion that marks in themselves, that whatever we do don't hold the meaning, but that's something that is interpreted by the viewer and is informed by our own knowledge and experience and understanding. So big ideas that I think just push it, maybe that traditional mark making lesson, you know, the introduction to the visual elements, that maybe there's some adding a bit of meat on the bones and exposing some other ideas behind that, beyond the just the mark making or experiencing the using tools or something like that. So it might be a good time now, as we go through these threshold concepts I'm going to share, to pause and maybe think about which ones resonate most with you as artists within your practices, which concepts you think are particularly important in the classroom, and even what these pithy statements, these kind of open-ended statements or illustrations, what they might suggest to you as well. So if you haven't had a chance to look on the website, maybe it's good not to do that and just see where they lead you. But I'm just going to run through them. So we've looked at the first one, artists make marks, drawing our attention. The second one, art communicates in every sense, just touching upon this idea that art can impact and affect us on ways beyond just our eyeballs. And students, I think, they feel under pressure if you ask them to talk about artwork sometimes in a class. And I think it's quite liberating to table the idea that we can feel things, we can experience things when we look at artwork, and it's difficult sometimes to put that into words. And students don't have to always be able to do that. I think it's good for them to know that we recognise a gap between their inability to articulate sometimes, but how they might feel about something when they experience artwork. And also the vocabulary of artwork, how that communicates between artworks. So not only the meanings that we take from artwork based on our own understandings, but also how one artwork might suggest another artwork, or how they can talk across time and space like that. So the TC4, artists use and abuse traditions, has been probably one of the most enjoyable threshold concepts for me for exploring with students. I love that idea. We do a portrait project where we teach traditional portrait skills over a period of a couple of weeks, painting traditional Western approaches to portraiture, and then we really play around with those issues of portraiture and how you might represent people. And so the illustration there kind of hints at the Dutch still life with the tulips and the vase of flowers, and then the next one is a reference to the Ai Weiwei smashing of the vases, but also it's got this flash of red coming down, quite Rothko-esque. And so all of these illustrations hold these clues to little stories about artists' work, but people often find their own within them as well. So art engages with the head, hands, heart is another one that has grown kind of particularly important to me. This idea of how we feel when we make art and how it changes the physicality of art making, the engagement with materials, the resistances and the affordances that the things materials allow us to do or don't allow us to do, and how that combination of thinking and moving and making can impact upon us. So hopefully these mumblings now are making some sense. It's getting late here. But I'm pleased with how these hold up for me. But like I've said before, the process of writing, the process of thinking hard about the words, and maybe even about how you might depict them, is for me been the reward. So it's great teachers are interested in these, but at the same time, I'd almost encourage people to set about thinking, writing their own. And over time, recently as well, as this world's been shifting dramatically, there's been particular threshold concepts. I found myself in lockdown going, geez, I wish I was in the classroom, because that really reminds me of that I suppose the Edward Colston statue is the most obvious one that comes to mind, and the issues surrounding that regarding traditions and places of power and representation, and there's so many rich themes to be explored in the classroom. It's nice to be back in there actually, and exploring these now with students as well. So okay, hopefully that's helped a little bit and given you some insights. And there's lots more information on the website regarding the threshold concepts, which I hope is of use. I tend to use, John tends to look after the photo pedagogy account. If you've looked on Instagram, and art pedagogy tends to be my kind of mumblings and doodlings in the gaps of things, and often sharing kind of ideas from in the classroom. So that might be something that you want to connect with. And just at the end, I wanted to touch upon this. Hopefully, Neil's been sharing this as well. But one of the great things that's come from the sharing the threshold concept work is people communicating and asking about them. And Neil provided this framework to think about as a challenge to our threshold concepts. And in particular, I think TC1's been a bit of a bone of contention, which I understand. And this has really helped me, even recently in the last weeks back in the classroom again, this framework for organising or thinking about ways we might make art or consider artworks that we encounter, and not necessarily in a kind of a linear chronological sense at all, but just useful devices for thinking about art education in more complex ways. And so that's a little kind of playful interpretation I made of that for a recent drawing activity we've been doing with students. And so I think I'd probably better stop there. Hopefully that's been useful as an insight for things. And there's a little activity here which you might want to have a think about as well. So a little challenge that maybe works for a group now or to take away and have a go with. But think about how you might develop an artwork. It might be graphic, an illustration or something, three-dimensional, an installation, performance, anything in response to a threshold concept of your choice. And then how you might share those amongst a group and explore those as a point of discussion. And hopefully there's something there that you could have some fun with. So it'd be great if people want to take that on. It'd be great to see some examples as well. So I think that's it. Time to go to bed, but hopefully that's been helpful for everyone. Thank you.